seems to be working. Yep. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA. And we're going to be talking about Tom Fishburne today, which ought to be fun, right? Because he's kind of my favorite muse, I think they call it, inspiration. And he did a post this yesterday, called "Navigating Uncertainty." Okay, and how to navigate this business climate. And it says maybe this, maybe that, on again, off again, no idea, who knows? We'll underline that. What the heck? Your guess is as good as mine, and that's how he started. And we're going to explain uncertainty, even to Tom Fishburne, perhaps. I think so. And he writes, almost exactly 5 years ago, early March 2020. Oops, I'm trying out a new tool here, and it's doing funny things for me. I drew a cartoon that captures some of how I felt at that moment of uncertainty. Remember March 2020? I do. I don't have it around here anymore, but I had a computer that someone came in and handed me a business card, and then I was typing on my laptop behind me, and I was so paranoid that I had touched the business card, and then I had touched the computer, that I grabbed some what I thought was just all-purpose spray, you know. It turned out to be Lime-A-Way, which is a sort of an acid. And so I kind of melted the keyboard on my laptop. I did replace it very inexpensively, but then when the keyboard arrived, it was in Japanese. Now, fortunately, I touch type, but for years I used that Japanese keyboard. All because of my fear, uncertainty, and doubt about 2020 March. Anyway, so he did a cartoon. It showed a group of people in a meeting, one holding up a coin. We need to update the forecast. Heads, this will blow over soon. Tails, it's the end of the world. And it was hard to say. You know, I remember not being able to go to church for a while, and one of my friends, when we finally did go, he said, you know, if this really is the end of the world, I'd like to be in church as much as possible. I thought that was a really good thought in case it ever happens again. In 20 plus years, he said, I've been drawing this cartoon. It's felt since I've been, and he means since I've been drawing cartoons, it's felt at times like a personal diary. With uncertainty spikes in 2008 and especially in 2020. And I've been through both of those. And so I thought I would take a little minute and go through some of the experiences I've had in the more than 40 years of marketing consulting. You know, I started thinking about those times. I went out on my own, walked out on a very nice job. VP of marketing at a pretty good company. I probably would have done better long term, making more money if I would have stayed there. But I wanted to have my own thing, and so I went and worked as a division of an ad agency with a promise of equity. And a week later, the stock market crashed in one of the biggest crashes since 1929. And I remember going to the DMA show, and the magazines in the airport were saying, you know, is this the next Great Depression? And, you know, it might have been. That wasn't 2008. That was back in 1997, I think. Yeah, nope, probably not. No, 1987. My, oh my, I am old. But Tom says, this too shall pass. When you think about uncertainty, this too shall pass. Okay, well, I'm going to give you more insight, I hope, than that. I'm going to take this and develop a teaching from it. Okay, that doesn't mean uncertainty passes. It's just that the particular situation at the moment passes. IMF created, that's the International Monetary Fund, created a metric called World Uncertainty Index, which has tracked the climate of uncertainty from 2008 to today. And the only constant has been constant spikes and an upward trend line of uncertainty. Okay, well, we're going to talk more about that. Okay, and in another article, which I did read, the 2016 Brexit article by Kevin Chesters and Simon Ramanesh, said that the worst thing to do in a time of chaos is to add to it. Yeah, that's probably true. And here's some related cartoons. And here's the guy with the coin. We need to update our forecast. Heads, this will blow over. Tails, it's the end of the world. I'm getting this down. I'm getting how to make lines now. Digital transformation and organizational change. This is from April 2020. What was this one from? March 2020. Okay. Digital transformation is years away. I don't see our company having to change anytime soon. Okay. How to do strategic planning, November 2020. This year, projected. Next year, projected. Guess, hunch, could happen. That could happen. Maybe, maybe not. Who the hell knows? Right? 5 stages of missing plan. This is 2008. I'm confident we'll make it up by 4th quarter. Who came in up with this crazy plan? We'd be on plan if it weren't for the weather and the economy and the election. It's probably, I'm going to just assume that it's a spam call. What will this do to my bonus? And I accept. Down here it says denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I accept that this plan was totally unrealistic and created by sadists. So these are the 5 stages. This is like based on the 5 stages of grief, and that was one of the better ones. And then this one was from November of 2008. Wait, I thought aggressive growth trumped caution. Not anymore. We're playing recession hold'em now. Okay, cash is king, caution, low overhead, more with less value. Yeah, sometimes aggressive growth was sometimes the right strategy, although Thomas Watson Jr. said that he's seen plenty of people pull together in a time of recession, but he said a company can get in real trouble in a time of growth and optimism and plenty of easy money. He said he worries more about those times than he does about the hard times. That was a pretty interesting comment. So anyway, that's what Tom has to say. Now let's get over to what I have to say, which is predictable predictable marketing. Let's hit the button so it fills the screen nicely. Predictable marketing in uncertainty. What is that about? What can I be talking about? Well, I've thought about this for a long time since I've been through some things, as we already said. So let's talk about it. Here's the first principle. And I used to do a talk called Bitheads, How to Get Bitheads to Do What You Want. And the premise of the talk was that you were in marketing and you were working with computer people and they never did what you wanted, and how to get them to do what you want. But what I actually presented was that computer people are procedural. They want to identify the specifications of a project. Then they want to lay out, outline, system, diagram a project, program it, and debug it, and be done with it. Go on to something else. They're systematic people. What happens when marketing interacts with systematic people? Marketing comes in and says, hey, I'd like this, I really like to know this question. I'd like to answer this question. Well, can you lay out a spec for it? Or I'd like to change the database. Well, could you? And they used to, in the old days, hand a spec sheet for a report. And marketing, of course, would be intimidated. So usually they'd go away and never come back. But let's suppose marketing does come back. And then IT would look at it and say, well, we're not really set up for this. And it's year end and finance has priority. So, we'll get back to you. So 6 months go by and nothing's happening. And by then there's new marketing people, if they're lucky. But let's just suppose they do program it and out comes the information that marketing is looking for. And you know what happens? What happens is marketing goes, well, if this and this and this, I wonder if, and my experience was that marketing was always insatiable. for every good answer, there were 2 new questions that came up. And IT people loved my talk. They were very relieved to hear that. They knew that marketing was asking for twice what they needed. And so IT would deliver half of what they asked for, but never quite the right half. People would come to me after the talk and say, "Were you listening in on our meetings? How did you know this stuff?" Well, what I realized was there was a fundamental difference between what marketing was trying to accomplish, which is capitalizing on opportunities, versus what IT was trying to accomplish, which was systematically programming processes for the company. IT wanted very stable things. Marketing wanted crazy. Which way's the wind blowing tomorrow? Right? And we all know the difficulty of that. Now, what does the CEO want? Well, the CEO wants predictable marketing. And, if you heard me talk before, I was in 5 of 5 pitches where we won the account. 5 out of 5 in 2 years or something at the general agency. Unheard of. They'd never seen anything like it. And in every one of them, the CEO or the CFO or somebody, with board fiscal responsibility would respond to my pitch that we could do accountable advertising. And they loved that. They always said, we like that guy that came up and talked. We want that accountable advertising. And yet they wouldn't invite me to the meetings because they wanted to win awards. They wanted creative. Okay, so what the CEO wants is known customer results. They want to know what's going to happen. They want a good prediction, like we saw from Tom Fishburne. They want a known return on investment. They want scalable growth insights. They want to know why it's going to work. They want to know whether it's going to work. They don't just want blue sky stuff. I've done a number of talks on what, the marketing breakthroughs for 2025 type talks. And the one thing I guarantee is that there'll always be new buzzwords, because that's what marketing is about. What Bob Meyer, my mentor at the ad agency, who owned the agency, said is, what they really want is they want to know that they can take a dollar bill and put it in a box and out jumps $1.50 or $1.70 or $2. He said, if you could deliver that, how many dollars would you want to put into the box? And the answer is as many as you get your hands on. Never had a budget problem when I had proven that I could outline the results and show how they were going to work. I had a client where 6 years in a row, I was plus or minus 5% at the end of the year, based on the circulation, right? It's possible to do it. So how do we predict? How do we get predictable marketing in a time of uncertainty? How does anybody predict? That's the first thing you should think about. I have an MA in philosophy of science, believe it or not. And how does science predict? Well, they identify the main causal connections. I was very impressed this week with the rocket ship, that pushes the capsule up into space orbit and then comes right back down and lands right on the ground. It's like, well, wait a minute. What if the wind's blowing a little? What if it's a gust of wind? It plunk, flopped over. It was perfect. And it doesn't come down slowly. It comes down really fast and then all of a sudden stops right at the bottom, right at the end. The legs go out just like on Bugs Bunny with the little Martian. It's a miracle. How do they do that? Well, they do it because they've identified the main causal factors and they factor that in and they adjust as it's coming down. They have little hands that sort of flop on the rocket ship. And big rocket engines too, but the little hands do a lot of the work. It's pretty funny. You can see it work. It's pretty great. So science and engineering have predictive force to the extent that they can isolate, identify, and validate the causal forces which produce repeatable effects, right? So if a bridge falls down, they pay a lot of attention to what made that bridge fall down. There's some really interesting pivotal cases where harmonics of the wind take a bridge down, and then they adjust for that, right? They know the strengths that steel can hold at certain qualities of steel, certain lengths, certain shapes of the beams. They've quantified all this stuff, and they know what the causal forces have to be, the snow load or the wind load or the earthquake load. And so because they've done that, they can predict that this building will stand up when they build it. It's fascinating. Or they can predict the rocket will come down and be able to land. Man, that's amazing. Okay? So we predict by identifying the causal forces, identifying the factors that act on things, right? Now, I explained how this works in marketing with a friend of mine who had a company called Presswick Gulf, and it grew to be tens of millions of dollars in sales. Very successful company. But when it started, they were doing a 2,000 piece mailing, just a little bitty catalog. And I said, what we're going to do, because I said, I can make some changes on this catalog and it's going to do better than what you've got. They said, well, how much better? I said, well, we can find out. We can actually track it. And we made a deal to split the difference. You know, I get half of the benefit. And wasn't a lot of money because, you know, there's not going to be a lot of difference. On a 2,000 piece mailing, it's pretty close to not even being statistically valid. But, you know, it was a friend of mine, so we're helping. And I said, it's a golf catalog. Is a golfer who shoots a 73 a better golfer than a golfer who shoots 85? Well, this guy was a very competitive golfer. And he said, well, wait. He said, it depends. I said, yeah, it really depends. I said, a 73, that's my best round ever on a kind of an executive course. And an 85 is the worst round Jack Nicklaus had in a PGA tournament in his life. So it definitely doesn't put me up in his league, right? And Matt, the president, founder of the company, said, yeah, you got to play on the same day, you know, on the same course. You got to play head to head to find out who's the better golfer on that day, at least. And I said, exactly. And why do we play on the same course on the same day, head to head? It's because we want to isolate the causal variables as much as possible, right? If you're totally different days, you could have vastly different weather, wind, rain, sleet, hail, snow. I played in all of it. Versus calm winds and beautiful sunny skies in Bermuda or someplace, Bahamas. I played there too. And so you want to go head to head. You know, that's why in a football game we play in the same stadium. We switch ends because the wind could be a factor, the sun can be a factor. All these things we figured out that they could be a factor, so we want to go head to head on the same day in the same conditions to make it a true test of skill, okay? So that is what we're trying to do in order to identify the causal factors in marketing. The scientific method starts with observation. Most people, and if you look it up in your little AI Google or whatever, a lot of times they leave this out. But it's a crucial part of the scientific method. And most great scientific breakthroughs start with noticing something unusual, right? And then you form a hypothesis. That's just a potential explanation, right? A potential explanation. So well, maybe it's because of this, right? Maybe if we made the phone number bigger, it would work. Maybe if we made, you know, if we put a picture of the factory on instead of a picture of a happy dog, or maybe vice versa. Come up with a hypothesis. Okay, so now we'll have a test. Then you execute an experiment. And again, you try to minimize the variables as much as possible to get to that hypothesis that is crucial. And if it works as expected, you know, you can say, well, now we've got an explanation. But it's not always the right explanation, so that you want to do it again. You want to try it again. You want to retest. The process never exactly stops. You collect data, which is for observation. You look at the variables. You do analysis. You take action in the experiments. And ultimately, you go round and round and round. Keep going. Process never stops. Now, why is mail helpful in this equation? Well, we have a lot of knowns in mail, right? We know who we mail. This is big. It's big. People don't realize how big this is. Now, when you put an ad on Facebook, unless you uploaded a list, which few people do, but if you say to Facebook, well, we want people that are 35 to 55, high income, high education, and love music, you don't know who they put your ad in front of. You don't know who, and even if you did know everybody that they put it in front of, you don't know who engaged with it. You don't know if they were paying attention on their screen or not. How many ads do you pay attention to on your screen? Not that many. So first off, we know who gets mailed. We have a definitive mailing list. Second of all, we know the mail gets to the household because the post office will actually tell us. They'll actually tell you when it goes in the mailbox with informed visibility. Most people don't even know that program exists. It's free. You can, and if you have their email already, if it's a customer mailing, you can email them right then, trigger it, and I can help you get that set up. Okay, we know that it goes to a decision maker because your kids, we never let our kids pick up the mail, partly because when I was in high school, I was going to get a letter sent home about what a disappointing grade I was up for right at Christmas. I didn't want that letter to get to my parents. My mother, I told her this like when I'm now in my 50s or something, and she said, yeah, I wondered why you were getting the mail every day. I turned out got an A in the course, but, I didn't want her to get unduly concerned right before Christmas. So anyway, so you don't let your kids pick up the mail, and so you know that it's going to a decision maker in the household, right? You know there's engagement because no matter what, somebody has to look at it. Even if it goes in the trash, at least there was some recognition. And sometimes I keep mailers around. I really like this. This is from my bank. And it's got this tab that's sticking out. I don't know exactly how they do that, but I really like it. I really like that it's got this weird tab. It gets my attention, right? So I keep these things around. And, it's about a low intro APR until September if I wanted to borrow more money. I borrowed plenty from that bank. Not right now, though. Okay, so we know that there's engagement. You have to look at it. And you have to decide, am I going to throw it in the trash? Am I going to save it like I saved this one? Or am I going to go make a purchase? Okay, so it assures that there's a decision maker, right? We know who we mail. Oops, I was just going to say I was getting really good at making these lines. I made them really nice up until that one. And so we know the engaged non-buyer, okay, which gives us the best foundation for testing and even for machine learning. But we're not going to get into that today. Les, he actually wrote me because I put this in his thing the other day. Because I posted about how mail is the only medium with guaranteed engagement built in. Guaranteed engagement built in. And that makes the testing fantastically powerful. Okay? And I found out I could call him Les. Okay? So how does this translate into the real world? How does this make your marketing more predictable? Well, we were working for this company, Pet Edge, okay? And at the time, that wasn't what it was called. New England Serum, I think it was called, but it was pet supplies, and it had kind of morphed into all kinds of stuff. Anyway, but it was dog grooming. No, that wasn't New England Serum. That was a different one. I think SNS Worldwide. No, it might have been. Anyway, it had morphed into dog grooming. Okay, that's where and so they had a little catalog, and we modeled the first try, and we beat their mailing. We did a uniques test, it's called, where we there's a big common group, but then we compare the ones on the outside, the ones that we mailed that they didn't want, and the ones that they mailed that we didn't want. And it turned out they did about $150,000 in profit in their uniques, and or in their share of it all. And we did about 250,000 profit. And the president called us up and said, "Is this common?" I was going to say, "No, it's really unusual. We did way better than we expected." But actually, when I stepped back to think about it, yeah, it was pretty common. We were pretty likely to do that because they were just using RFM, and we beat the tar out of it. But then he let us model some more in the spring, and in the fall it turned out that the profile was kind of upscale neighborhoods, high income, high population density, high education, urban, rich, north side of Chicago kind of stuff. We called it Fifi the Poodle model, because you can see they were taking their little dog and dolling them up. Looks like a wizard doll. I have a wizard hat over there, but it's a little out of reach. So it went along with Best of Show, if you've ever seen Best of Show. Anyway, so then we modeled it again, and this time it was low income, low population density, low education, and I called up my friend Johnny, who had a couple of dogs, because I was convinced the computers were broken. I said, "Johnny, do you ever get your dog groomed?" He said, "No." "What do you mean groomed?" I said, "Well, like a doggy haircut." "Oh yeah, sure." Well, right away I knew there was something up. I said, "When do you do it?" He said, "In the spring, the weather's getting warmer, dog's full of burrs. Dog seems to like it." I said, "Do you care how the dog looks?" "No." Well, what we discovered was there was a dog clipping market that was probably 20 times bigger than the dog grooming market. And so we were able to, this was the recession right after 9/11. There was a pretty good recession because of the uncertainty of that time. And we got 20% growth in that recession, and 20% the next year, and 20% the next year, which is really pretty powerful, right? It wasn't just modeling, it was observation, right? It was observation from the data, which is possible. Okay, here's a cover that I was handing out. Let's look at this one first. And I would hand it to my friends, and they would say, who own businesses, and they would say, I said, "You might need some of this stuff." And they'd say, "Why would I want a Pontiac hat? Or why would I want a 3M notebook or a JI Case mug?" No, I'd say, "This is to put your company name on there. This is Ford Motor Company and stuff." We had big name clients like Caterpillar and 3M and Heister and all kinds of good people. Pontiac was a big one. Avon. And so then they say, "Oh yeah, we buy that stuff." After about 15 of these episodes, I said, people don't get what we're doing here. Let's test it. And I actually had to fire the art director or the creative director, because he said, "You're going to schlock up this catalog," which is kind of true, I got to admit. But the instructions I gave to the new art director was make it as close as possible. Make it identical if you can. And you can see very close. Here's the same jacket with custom embroidery on it. It says your logo. I said, make these look like logos. Don't make them just look the same black square type. So it says your imprint here, nice and big. Every word of copy was the same. Everything on the cover was the same. All the items are the same, except this pen versus the cross pens. Tape measure, mug, everything is identical. And every word of the catalog was identical. We mailed 600,000 pieces, 300,000 of each, right? Very, 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 very accurate uncertainty level. Very, very, very good, high confidence level, rather. And we saw a 40% increase on the Your Imprint Here version. We had the observation from my handing out the catalog. We had the hypothesis, people don't get what's going on. We crafted the experiment very carefully. We got the results. The explanation fit our expectation. And we then never looked back. And it really rocketed the sales of this company. Okay, just want you to know. But that's how it works in the real world. Okay, this was just a head-to-head with Cabela's. 2 million catalogs. We did it at the worst possible time for us, best possible time for them. And we again did the uniques test and were able to generate 73% higher net profit per catalog. That's good. Oh, 454,000 in profit expectation. Here's some other mailers. Nordstrom said results were hurt by stopping its use of direct mail. Eric Nordstrom on the stock call. J. Jill, Linda Heasley, who was then president, not anymore. We plan to shift from direct mail to alternative media options, primarily digital. In hindsight, we moved too much too soon. Talbots, we wanted to attract a younger woman, so we killed the catalog and moved to digital. After 2 years, we saw it was a huge mistake. That was at a NEMOA presentation. But all of these people could have tested it. They could have easily held out a few, Talbot's probably had 10 million catalogs going out in the mail at the time. All they had to do was not mail a million of them, right? They would have had an absolutely certain confidence interval. They would have made it predictable in uncertain times. Fazoli's, this was in 2020. Fiscal 2020 broke more than 550 sales records. They returned to direct mail coupons, reaching new and lapsed customers. That's from Carl Howard, the CEO, 2021. But the point isn't that they mailed versus they didn't, although that's part of my point. The point is you can test, you can understand what's going on. How you get through uncertain times is the way you handle it. Musician's Friend was our client in 2008. Okay, we started modeling in 6-month periods, not because there wasn't seasonality, we had identified seasonality, but because there was such uncertainty. And because of that, we never had to cut circulation. They mailed about 500,000 pieces per drop per month, okay, 6 million catalogs, 64-page catalogs, but we mitigated the uncertainty of 2008 by doing many, many careful tests. And one of the best ones was the holdout test, where we didn't mail these people. They were worth $12 profit. This is the customer list, good list, $12 profit per piece, $22 profit per piece on the mailed version. This is not mailed, this is mailed. No mail, mail. No mail, mail. These are 3 months. They were not mailed for 3 months, so we saved $3 in catalog cost, more or less. I don't remember exactly. And a huge difference. That's how you deal with uncertainty. We proved that the mail was worthwhile and kept going. Okay, Bullock and Jones, they tested us every month for 18 months, right? we were at the DMA show. Eric Goodwill, the president at the time, bought me dinner at a fancy place in New York City. I said, Eric, I'm supposed to pick up the bill. I'm the vendor. He said, you made us so much money. That system of yours, I wasn't even running the system at the time. They were just running it in-house. He said, we find 20%. He said, the uniques pulled over $15 a book better than what we pulled. Yeah. And the numbers are there, but they're a little small. Okay, my favorite case study is Lovesac with about 80 stores. And wasn't a great mail application, high ticket merchandise, not something you buy every day. We like to have repeat addictive purchases. Very expensive, complex sale, low number of customers. And Patrick, the VP of marketing, said our main issue is name recognition. So why waste mail on people who've already bought? So that's a great question. Let's see if we can test it. He said, you can test it? I said, yeah. And we did a holdout test. Okay, and while we were working with them from 2014 to 2017, they went from about 50 million to about 100 million. They did it go over 100 million. Okay, and the holdout actually found a 900% return on investment that the people that got mailed were worth 900% more EBITDA, bottom line profit, than the people who didn't get mail. Okay? And one of the funny things is we found out that there was pass along, that we found a lot of next door neighbors were ordering bigger orders. For every one order from the customer file, we got 2 orders from neighbors. And we never had a problem getting a budget after that. Okay? And, they went on, it was just great. They did great. You can see it. We helped fuel the growth. So what the conclusion is that the scientific method generates prediction, but not any other medium gives you the ability to isolate causal variables like mail. Direct marketing can tell you which half is wasted. Direct marketing can tell you how big a difference it makes, whether to mail or not mail. You can compare offers like we did with the sales guides catalog. Unless you know why, it's not direct marketing. And that is what the CEO is looking for, as we know. Here's a more recent case study. This is in the 2020 time frame. And this is the same thing, net ROI. We did a uniques test, and what we found was the gross margin per piece on each catalog, we did dramatically better, right? And, oh no, these were the previous mailings, and then this is when we got involved with our machine learning. Wonderful. Did wonderful, right? And this one is in the past few months, past 3-4 months. Again, incremental mail impact, 123% higher, more than double. All the while, the social media and the event marketing and the out of home was all going. The mailed did 144% response. The not mailed did 65.65% response. It's a golden age if you know how to set this stuff up. And if you don't, you should give me a call. I always wondered for 40 years now why direct mail marketing always seemed to beat mass media. Why is it that we could transform legacy companies? Part of it is we have a guaranteed engagement, and the other is we can have assured experimental validation. We always will. And that's how you get predictable marketing in times of uncertainty. If you're interested in some more case studies, some other stuff, Spinning Straw into Gold is available in paperback. I think I got some just sitting right over here. And also in Kindle. And it's not expensive. There it is. Somehow I botched up the cover. But that's it. You can scan the QR code and get right to it, I think. I don't know. We'll see. And that's it for me. Have a great day. I hope you like and share. I hope you give me a call. It's all there on LinkedIn. If you want to find me, LinkedIn is the best. I get so many fake emails, it's ridiculous. I got one today for an RFP. The website didn't exist. It's just scam. Anyway, I deleted several hundred emails a day today. Yeah, that's the way it is. We can help. Have a great day. Bye-bye.